Hey, this is Daryl Henry with Insurance for Entrepreneurs, and this video is what is workers' compensation insurance for Maryland businesses? I'm going to explain that workers' compensation is a package product with employers' liability insurance, and then I'm going to go through the 5 things that are typically covered under a workers' compensation policy. So, first off, let's talk about workers' compensation insurance being a package product. Employer's liability, the part that most people don't think about, protects the business for failing to keep a safe workplace. So the idea here is that the business knew that the tires were bald on the van, refused to fix them, and then the employee's driving the van and the tire blows out. And in this situation, the employee can forego workers' compensation benefits and instead sue the employer. I have not seen this happen real often. I've worked at an agency with thousands and thousands of clients. We've only ever seen one employer's liability claim, seen thousands of workers' compensation claims. So, if we're going to stick with the scenario that the tires were bald and there's a vehicle accident, seen plenty of workers' compensation claims for the driver that gets hurt in that accident. However, I have not seen many people forego workers' compensation benefits to pursue employers' liability limits. So, now that we've gotten that out of the way, because those are the numbers that you see on the first page: bodily injury by disease, policy limit, all that. Let's talk about the benefits that are paid out for workers' compensation insurance. So, sticking with the idea of somebody's in a vehicle accident and gets hurt. So, the driver's hurt, they're going to have medical bills, right? Let's say that their neck got hurt in the accident and now they've got to go to a chiropractor, which can get kind of dicey, but they got to go to the doctor and get checked out. They got to make sure that the injuries from the accident are paid for. Workers' compensation pays for those medical bills. Now, one of the things that can get a little bit dicey is if the employee says, "Hey, my shoulder was hurt in the accident," and then the doctor says, "Well, no, that shoulder was partially damaged before the accident." That's where there can be disputes in a workers' compensation claim. So let's assume medical bills are being paid. The next thing that needs to be paid is wage reimbursement. So if that employee is going to be off the job for a period of time because they can't work because they're physically unable to work, workers' compensation is going to pay to replace their wages. And from the insurance company's perspective, one of their greatest strategies for keeping costs down in claims is to help employees get back to work faster. There's been so many studies over the years that employees who get back to work sooner are happier, they recover faster, and overall, the costs for workers' compensation come down in that situation. So that's the second thing. The third thing would be disability benefits. So if there's an employee that is long term disabled due to an injury, workers' compensation is going to pay for medical bills and medical expenses over the period of that time. So I saw a claim where an individual was working in a group home for children and they had a go-kart area and he got hit in the leg by a go-kart and he was temporarily disabled for a period of time while he rehabilitated his leg. And workers' compensation paid for the lost wages and the disability benefits for the period of time that he could not work. The fourth thing that workers' compensation insurance will pay for is legal protection. So going back to the idea of somebody is in a car accident, neck gets snapped, and they say, well, that was a result of the car accident. Doctor looks at it and says, no, you had neck problems before as a result of a previous job. That was only partially responsible. Now the employee's mad and they go and hire an attorney. Workers' compensation insurance is going to pay for the attorney for the business to defend them in court, to handle the situation. This is another area where insurance companies really try to reduce costs. They're going to try and minimize the amount of time that they spend in court because attorneys get very expensive very fast. And the fifth thing that workers' compensation pays for is rehabilitation support. Pays for physical therapy, pays for vocational training programs, all in the spirit of getting employees back to work as quickly as possible because that's what's in the interest of the employee, the business, and the insurance company. At the end of the day, everybody wins when an employee recovers quickly, gets back to work, and the minimal amount of money is paid out for medical bills. That is the win-win-win, because in that situation, the employee can get back to work. They are going to be a happier person if they can get back to work. The employer is going to have to pay less for additional wages, for disruptions in businesses, and the insurance company pays less for claims. All right. Those are the 5 things that workers' compensation pays for. I hope that was helpful. If it was, please hit like and subscribe. It helps other people like you find the content. And if you've got more questions, check out my website at insuranceforentrepreneurs.net. Thank you so much for watching. And as always, go build something great.